The War of Cookies. Entrepreneurship is war. If you are not ready to fight for market share and profit, you may as well retain your current job. It becomes even more interesting when two brothers get caught up in the war. The success of Oreo today is a clear example of the tussle for market share often seen in the business world. You may know about Oreo today, but what if we told you the secret behind the success of Oreo? Will you continue being a fan of the cookie? Well, we will find out. For the rest of this video, I will be sharing with you the brutal origin of Oreos and how it evolved to become one of the most popular cookies across the world. Oreo cookies have long reigned supreme as the go-to sandwich cookie on grocery shelves and have over time evolved into so much more. Today, Oreos is said to produce 40 billion units of biscuits per year, making more than $2 billion each year, but not a lot of people know that Oreos are a product of intense rivalry and revenge. Some other opinions refer to Oreos as a stolen idea. But is it really a stolen idea? Well, we will leave you to decide, so stay glued to the video as we uncover some myths about the giant cookie. It all started when two brothers decided to explore the opportunities in the biscuit world. I mentioned earlier that Oreo's biscuit was a result of a tussle between two brothers, but it was not always that way. The Luce brothers, Jacob and Joseph, were beloved brothers who were already doing well in their separate businesses, but somewhere along the line, Jacob discovered an opportunity to venture into biscuit production. This was an opportunity to acquire a booming bakery, and Jacob invited his beloved brother Joseph to be part of the venture. The duo emptied their savings into the new venture and named the company after their surname, the Luce Brothers Biscuit Company. A business story that was supposed to be happy ever after, a bromance between the two brothers, would later become a sour experience for them both. Although the Biscuit Brothers did massively well in their new company and made millions of dollars in revenue, Jacob had other ideas for expansion, which were not welcomed by his brother Joseph. Jacob wanted to compete with a major biscuit brand across America, and his idea of achieving this was to partner with other smaller biscuit companies and form a synergy to compete fiercely. Even though Joseph didn't like the idea, Jacob, as the president of the company, will go on to ask his lawyer, Adolphus Green, to invite 35 companies to form a merger under a new name, the American Biscuit Company. With this new merger, Jacob was able to achieve his dream of competing with the top biscuit companies in America, like the New York Biscuit Company and the United States Biscuit Company. The competition was so fierce that the prices of biscuits crashed as each company tried to appeal more to their customers in terms of pricing. Despite the success achieved by Jacob in the face of competition, Joseph was not pleased with the way he was going about it, but he can only do little, as Jacob was the president and had a major say in the company. The fallout. Well, can I say fate happened, and the hard work of Jacob began to take a toll on his health. He became seriously ill and could not continue with the daily operation of the business. Jacob had no choice but to step aside and take care of his health. And with Jacob being out of the way, Joseph took over the leadership and was set to do things his way. Joseph's idea was to bring peace to the raging biscuit business in America, so he decided to form a conglomerate with the other biscuit companies. That way, the pricing and quality of biscuits can be controlled from a central point instead of the price and quality wars which are crashing the biscuit industry. When Jacob heard about Joseph's intentions, he quickly wrote him a letter convincing him to change his mind. In a section of the letter, Jacob wrote, "Please do not team up with the very people who drove me to my sickbed." But it was already too late. Joseph had made up his mind. Joseph had lived in the shadow of his brother for a long time and had waited for an opportunity to implement his ideologies. Now that fate had turned the tables to his favor, he was not going to let that opportunity pass him by. As the new president of the American Biscuit Company, Joseph swung into action immediately and invited Adolphus Green, who helped his brother Jacob in the earlier mergers. He asked Adolphus to approach the rivals and negotiate an all-in-one merger in the form of a conglomerate. The rivals, the New York Biscuit Company and the United States Baking Company, liked the idea and agreed. They formed a new conglomerate called the National Biscuit Company. Well, everything went well, except that tricky Adolphus decided to have his dance in the whole drama. Unknown to Joseph, who had confided in Adolphus to facilitate the merger, Adolphus enlisted himself as the president of the conglomerate and made the Luce brothers' board of directors. When Jacob heard about the mess Joseph had made with the company he left him, he decided to leave the company and start all over again. The rivalry. An important trait of successful entrepreneurs is their ability to quickly bounce back from failures. Combining the shock of his company being taken over by a lawyer he employed and a declining health situation was definitely enough to make Jacob give up, but he was not going to allow any of those setbacks to stop him from pushing further. On recovery from his sickbed, Jacob immediately launched a new company called Luce Wiles Biscuit Company. But as a kid brother, he reconciled with his brother and the duo started on a clean slate once again. For Jacob, this was not just a new company, but a war against the Nabisco Company. Waging business and price war against competitions is one of the strengths of Jacob, and he was determined to take back his place as one of the greatest biscuit companies in America. Although the Luce Wiles Biscuit Company was created in 1902, they struggled to make biscuits that would compete against the reigning Nabisco products. After several attempts in producing a competitive product, it was not until 6 years later that they were able to come up with a product that would finally displace their competitors. It was Joseph who came up with the idea, and the brothers had a potential gold mine in their hands. The Luce Wiles Biscuit Company led Jacob in 1908 to introduce the Hydrox cookie. This biscuit was so sensational that it quickly became the company's signature product. The name Hydrox was chosen as a combination of the words hydrogen and oxygen, the molecules that make up water. Luce Wiles Biscuit Company, in their defense for their choice of the name, explained that they chose the name because it was associated with purity and goodness. You may be wondering, what has purity and goodness got to do with biscuits? Well, in America at that time, lots of companies were using substandard recipes to make their biscuits thrive in price wars raging the biscuit industry. The Hydrox name was simply an announcement by the Luce brothers to America that their biscuits were made using the best products and they are pure and healthy. But aside from their choice of name, the Hydrox biscuit was also very delicious as it began to dominate the markets. Retailers ordered tons of the biscuit, and all shelves were getting filled up by Hydrox. The design of the packaging was also phenomenal and caught the attention of anyone who saw it on the shelves. The Hydrox biscuit was even dubbed the King of Biscuits. The emergence of the Hydrox biscuits led to a sharp drop in revenue of Nabisco's products. Adolphus Green, who was still the president of Nabisco, had a tough job ahead of him as he had to find a way to regain control of the market. After several failed attempts of coming up with a worthy competition for Hydroxy, Nabisco resorted to copying the Hydrox appearance and designs. They made Hydrox-like cookies and called them Oreo. But despite copying the concept of Hydrox biscuit, the Nabisco newly launched Oreo still couldn't penetrate the market. Tons of Oreos were left on the shelf as consumers buy up the Hydrox cookies before they can start considering Oreo. The recipe choices of Hydrox were healthier and were indeed reflecting purity and goodness associated with its name. This goes a long way to show us that ingenuity and originality will always win. Despite all efforts to dominate the Hydrox brand, Oreo kept falling short, despite being backed by Nabisco, which was a very popular biscuit brand name at the time. The sad ending. The sad reality of life is that everything that has a beginning will someday have an ending. Hence the reason why business experts strongly advise entrepreneurs to create a succession plan that will ensure that their companies are sustainable and continue to outlive them. In the case of the Luce Wiles Company, the reverse was the case. After successfully holding up the company and making it a force to reckon in the biscuit industry, it was not quite long before the Luce brothers died. Dying just within a space of 1 year, the Luce Wiles Company lost the two brains behind their success almost at once. The company, in a sad turn of events, crumbled over time and was acquired by American Tobacco. Now that the Luce brothers are out of the way, Nabisco ran several advertisements to control the market. They soon took over the market and became the biggest biscuit company in America. The comeback of Hydrox. Let's just say that although the Luce brothers have passed away, their fighting spirits are still living among Americans. After several years of closure, the American people still talk about Hydrox cookies. Reportedly, some never tasted Oreo cookies despite the absence of the Hydrox cookie. In the spirit of never giving up, an entrepreneur, Alyssa Kassoff, has caught the never-give-up spirit of the Luce brothers and has taken it upon himself to revive the Hydrox brand. On relaunching the Hydrox brand, they sold $500,000 worth of cookies in the first week, a testament that Americans are still standing solidly with the cookies of their dreams. And as for Oreo, things have never been the same. Let's say the original cookie is back to the scene and the copy had to bow out. Ever since the resurgence of Hydrox, Oreo had continued to face backlash from all angles, provoking political and health interests. Lots of people are stepping up to boycott Oreo, and this has resulted in the steady decline of their revenues, which also led to a gradual shutdown of their facilities. Will Oreo survive the second comeback of Hydrox? Hydrox was tagged the King of Biscuit for a reason, and now that the king is back, others may have to take a bow.